Appreciate you being here on a Tuesday. I'm Coulter Nuanez, broadcasting to you from the Northwest Motorsport Studio. Northwest Motorsport, new to Missoula, new to Montana. They boast the largest inventory of trucks anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. You can visit and see that inventory of trucks either by heading over to the corner of Stevens and Mount or by visiting nwmsrocks.com. That's nwmsrocks.com. You want to listen to this show somewhere besides the radio? Go to our station website, 1029espn.com. Click on Listen Live. You can also find all our podcasts there as well. Just right after this show, I'm going to post a sweet podcast. It's edited. It's all curated, ready for you, the listener. Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary of the 2001 national champion Grizz, with none other than Joe Glenn, the man. One of my favorite coaches I've ever been around. Quite frankly, one of my favorite guys I've ever been around. Joe Glenn is like, the fact that he didn't wear a headset on the sideline, but then that he is who he is, it's one of the great characters that's ever existed in Montana. It's actually too bad that he was only here for 3 years as the head coach. He had an extended stint here as a assistant coach back in the early 1980s, but the fact that he was only here for 3 years as a head coach, too bad. But also, I think that's why he is in this rare air. I mean, he's like the Dave Dickinson of coaches. Obviously, Don Reed is right there as well. Papa Bear is the one that built the thing for the Grizzlies in the late 80s into the early 90s, and then, of course, culminating with the 1995 national championship before he rode off into the sunset and retired. But the fact that Joe Glenn was just, 39-6, a national championship appearance in 2000 and then a national championship win in 2001. Unbelievable tenure, and also just what a guy. What a fun storyteller, what a funny guy, what a fun character, infectious. So you can find all that stuff on the station website, including the live stream and all of our various podcast entry points. Or you can watch us on YouTube as well. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel. I was just talking to the folks up at Haymaker Beef about a couple different things, but we have a Traeger smoker as well as a boatload of Alpine Touch and a beef box from Haymaker Beef up there in Ledger, Montana. We also have a Otter box, a grill, and a cooler from Twisted Tea. And so part of the scavenger hunt challenge that we have for you is subscribing to our YouTube channel. You also have to subscribe to our podcast, then follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Follow Haymaker Beef and Alpine Touch on Facebook and Instagram, and then shoot us a text, 406-888-1029. That's 406-888-1029. Just so you know, the texts are starting to come in now. Everybody's following along. We're giving this away about 3 weeks now, so we're inside of 3 weeks. Montana State at Montana, that football game. We're going to give it away the Friday before that, and then you can come pick up your prizes down there at the tailgate show. But just so you know, there's a lot of people that have been entering lately. We also did a little Halloween blitz. We got a couple dozen entries just from people telling us their costumes. So there's a pretty sizable list. So you're going to want to get on that list because we have some fun stuff for you. Let's take a look at what we got in the show today. To get things started off, it is the first Tuesday of the month. And so we're going to talk some soccer. We're going to start with our youth sports segment presented by Pepsi Cola of Missoula. And our good friend Carolyn is actually the guest. Carolyn, the chick who doesn't know sports, most famously. Also, very involved with FC Missoula. So on their behalf, she gave us a little update. There's tryouts going on over the weekend for FC Missoula down at the fort. And so if you want to get your kids involved, boys, girls, all ages, club soccer has really taken off. I think it's really beneficial for young soccer players. So get involved no matter what level of skill or what level of passion you have for the game at this moment, a good one. So Carol will give us some more details onto that. And then we'll dive into what happened in the state championship matches across the state of Montana at the high school level. We had 4 state champions crowned this last weekend. And then we'll also talk some Grizz soccer. The University of Montana, their women's soccer team, landed 4 players on the first team all conference, and they're into the Big Sky tournament. The semifinals are on Friday night. So University of Montana women's soccer remains one of the best programs in the Big Sky in any sport, and they've been darn good here these last couple of years. We're also going to talk some high school football, get you all updated on what happened over the weekend. around the state at AA, A, B, and Class C, 8-man, Class C, 6-man. Who won the first round games? What are the second round games? We probably get to hear some distances later on in the week, too. That's always pretty fun. We also have our Treasure State Stars of the Week, featuring some of the best individual performers from all levels of sports, but primarily preps from around the state of Montana. Top of the hour, Aaron Best, the head coach for the Eastern Washington Eagles, will join us. Eastern Washington hosts Montana State. That's number 4 Bobcats at number 5 Eastern Eagles. And so that'll be the showdown not only in the Big Sky Conference, but on the national level as well. Big-time conference title ramifications, as well as potential playoff seeding ramifications as well. And we're also going to continue our conversation from yesterday. Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz, and myself talked quite a bit about playoff scenarios, the playoff picture, playoff seeding, a stretch run for all of the contenders, both in the league and on a national level. And so we'll continue that conversation. Some big news brewing, or at least some hype about some potentially big news brewing. Yesterday, the hype machine for the potential of College Game Day coming to Missoula. Certainly, it's starting, and they're lobbying for it. I've been hearing about this for a couple months. We've talked about it on here a little bit, not maybe as much as we have. I'm actually a little bit torn at the tactic of the way that this information is being spread and hyped up. It would be very cool and awesome for Missoula, and it would obviously be so awesome for us here at ESPN Radio if College Game Day was in Missoula for a Bobcat Grizzly game on November 20th. It's just interesting. It's interesting to see just the way that the information is getting out there, and sometimes you got to have it. Sometimes you need to ask for it, to ask for the attention and publicity. But I don't know. It's a little interesting. So myself, Andrew Hout, we're going to get into College Game Day potentially coming to Missoula, plus some more on that Eastern and Montana State matchup, and a little bit on the Grizz matchup at Northern Colorado as well. But we dive now into our Pepsi Youth Sports segment. We'll talk a little high school soccer after this. But I caught up with our good friend Carolyn earlier today. Well, our good friend Carolyn loves being on the radio so much, she decided that her birthday present to herself was to come on the radio twice. So this is not a chick who doesn't know sports. Instead, this is our Pepsi Youth Sports segment presented by Pepsi Cola of Missoula. Happy birthday, Carolyn.
Thanks.
We're doing this on a Tuesday morning because Carolyn has big plans. She's got a bottle of wine with a devil on it.
Yep.
That's all you need.
Right? This Scorpio is starting the day right.
What do Scorpios do?
We just get mad really easily.
That's not really like you.
I know. It used to be. I used to be like that.
That's
I've grown.
interesting.
In your 40s, you really evolve.
Why do you think some people fit their zodiac signs so much and some people don't?
I think people read about their zodiac signs and decide that's going to be their
I could
personality.
never read a horoscope in my life, and I'm a bull all day long.
I don't know.
I'm a Taurus. Like I was born a Tatanka. That's what it is.
I don't know. But there are things about me, my sign, that are true. I'm fiercely loyal.
That's true.
I'm a delight. I don't know if that's part of it.
Especially
but
after the devil wine.
Yeah. I'll be a real delight about here. Halfway.
Okay. Well, regardless, happy birthday. We love having you in here twice. We'll be back again on Thursday for some more good times, maybe some birthday stories. But in the meantime, what's going on in the youth sports world?
Well, I volunteered to come in for this segment today because it is near and dear to my heart. It is FC Missoula, the soccer club. They're having tryouts this weekend at Fort Missoula. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday evening, they'll be doing various rounds of tryouts for the soccer teams. It's not just a tryout, though. It's also just a way for you to come and check out FC Missoula.
Figure boys and girls, right?
Boys and girls. Yep. You can kind of check things out, see if, you like their style, like what they're looking to do with their teams. All of the tryouts are divided by gender and age. So if you go to fcmissoula.com, you can find your child's, where they would fit in. And come on out. It's free. And it's a really fun day. My kiddo's done it a few years in a row. And even though he's already on a team, he loves to go just to enjoy the day playing soccer. FC, what I love about FC is they really have a team for everyone there. If you're really hardcore and you want to travel all over the place, they'll find you a team. If you just want to practice soccer and play a few games, they'll find you a team. So it's a really great club.
what's going on in Missoula soccer-wise, I think is awesome. And it starts at the youth level for sure. This last weekend, though, the Missoula Hellgate boys soccer team won their third consecutive state championship. I think they've won like 6 out of the last 9.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This was not the case. It used to be soccer was one of the most linear sports in Montana. The huge high schools dominated. That was it. It was Bozeman, Billings West. The Missoula schools never had a chance. So these youth programs, they have such a huge influence in it. Missoula Hellgate on the girls' side was very good this year, too, made it to the semifinals. And, I mean, competitive at Sentinel and Big Sky, too. And so much of that is the youth part. And so, I'm conflicted over how serious youth sports have gotten. But this, like you said, this has a variety of different levels for everybody that wants to be involved.
Yeah, and I have to say, my son and the boys on the team have been playing together for many years, and watching them evolve as players has been like so fun. I mean, they used to be a swarm of bees on the field, and then now the stuff they can do is insane. And I just couldn't be more proud to be part of this club. They just really teach these kids more than just winning and more than just, footwork and things. They teach you how to be a teammate. Yeah. They teach you sportsmanship. It's just such a great program.
Soccer has a lot of transferable traits to life, too. Teamwork, I mean, it is one of the great team sports that there is. You have to play together. I think it takes a certain amount of sacrifice, too, because there's not a lot of statistics to be garnered. So you do have to play your role, know your role, self-awareness, all that stuff. So good for the kids. Give people more details. This is Fort Missoula, Saturday afternoon.
Fort Missoula, Saturday. Well, it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Okay.
Go to fcmissoula.com. You click to register. There's a little registration right when you get to the website.
You do need to register.
You need to register. And it's free. And you will find out what time and, what day your kid's birth year. It goes by birth year. When their practice is. The practices are 2 hours. The tryouts, the meet and greets, whatever we want to call them. And, yeah, it's a great crew. And I do also have to say that FC parents are the best parents. Like, we just have so much fun together too on the sidelines. So, if you want to be part of that as well, come on down. fcmissoula.com, and all the information is on that website.
It's a lot of good soccer going on around here in Missoula and around Montana. The University of Montana soccer team plays in the Big Sky Conference semifinals of the tournament here on Friday as well. So later on today, on this Tuesday show, we'll hear from Andrew Houghton a little bit more about the wide world of soccer in the state of Montana. But Carolyn, this was great. Thank you so much for swinging by.
Thanks for having me. And guess what? 102.9 ESPN Radio is also a sponsor of FC Missoula.
Let's go.
Along with Pepsi. So, we got the best sponsors in town.
The Youth Sports segment brought to you by Pepsi Cola of Missoula. We do this the first Tuesday of every month, so check back in next month, and we'll have some more great info for you and your kids. Thank you, Carolyn. Phenomenal, as always. Pretty good for a salesperson. She's pretty stellar on the radio. It's Nuanez now, your favorite daily sports talk show here on ESPN Missoula, as well as SWX Montana. We're going to do a little dual segment here. Every other week we do what we're calling the Footy 15, which is 15 minutes on the state of the world in soccer. Sometimes we talk international soccer. Mostly we talk local soccer, both at the college and high school levels. But this is also going to be a Prep Extra presented by Farmers State Bank, because we have quite a bit of prep news here. First, we'll start with Class AA. In the boys' state championship game, what a scene. Hellgate and Glacier battled to a scoreless tie at the end of regulation. Then, as time was winding down in extra time, it looked like almost certainly they're going to go to a shootout. So first of all, I'm going to bring in Andrew Houghton because I have a couple questions here. How many periods of extra time do they play?
I think generally 2. It's two 15-minute periods for high school, and I think for college too.
But there's like stoppage time. Does that exist in high school and college as well, or is that only in the World Cup and professionally?
So that does not exist, at least as far as college. I haven't watched high school soccer in a minute, man.
Okay,
I don't think it exists in high school either. I think you just have a running clock counting down from 40 minutes in each half.
Yeah, okay.
And when it's over, it's over.
I was thinking about this the other day. One of the coolest parts about being a sports writer in a small town, like a rural community where there's a lot of high school sports, and if you're like a one-man show or part of a two-man show, and you're expected to just basically cover the gamut, it's so fun and interesting, especially when you're covering sports that maybe you didn't grow up like loving or trying to cover or anything like that, or playing for that matter. I stopped playing soccer when I was about 6. If you're watching on TV, you can see why. I was built for several other sports a lot more than the soccer pitch. But I was thinking that when I first graduated college and I got a job out in Ellensburg, Washington, right in the middle of Central Washington, Ellensburg, high school was in the CWAC, the Central Washington Athletic Conference. And that conference included high schools in towns like Grandview and Othello and Ephrata and Missoula. And these are big-time agricultural towns with big-time Hispanic populations. And so soccer was like it, man. Like the high school soccer, that was what people wanted to know about. It was super competitive. And so I got into soccer. The World Cup was also in that was the World Cup year, 2010 was. And so everybody around in those communities, too, were also loving it. Like one of my favorite things, I did this cool feature story where I went to taco trucks in 5 different taco trucks between Yakima and Othello and Ephrata, and took in a part of a World Cup match while eating tacos, surrounded by mostly Hispanic people that were just loving that the World Cup was going on and loving watching it. It was so fun. It was like the greatest sports bar scene ever, except for in a taco truck where very few people speak English. I loved it. It was super fun. But to Andrew's point, though, it's been a minute since I've watched some high school soccer, too, so that's why I don't know the answer to my rules question. But the scene remains the same. This is actually, I'm just going to read you a couple lines from this because, first of all, it's great sports writing by a good friend of mine and a former colleague of mine, Bill Speltz at the Missoulian. Love when Bill dives into the high school gamers because he's money, man. He's really good at setting the scene. And Bill was setting the scene as far as the extra time playing out and how tired both Hellgate and Glacier looked in this AA state title match. And he says, then something magical happened. Missoula Hellgate senior, Marcus Anderson, a player who for 4 years epitomized what it meant to be unselfish on the pitch, always hustling back on defense and opting for assists over goals, took matters into his own hands. In the final minute of his high school career, he hit the shot of his young life. It came from the top left corner of the 18-yard box with a minute left in the second overtime, giving the Knights a 1-0 win over Kalispell Glacier and their third straight state title at Fort Missoula Park. That's good writing, man. But that's also, what a scene. How cool is that? A senior hits a goal in the last minute of extra time in the state title match in Missoula to lift Hellgate to their third straight state championship. That's what dreams are made of. That's how the sports movie ends. So congratulations to Marcus Anderson. Of course, Jay Anderson, the longtime head coach for the Missoula Hellgate boys soccer team. And Missoula, you should be proud of that team because they are absolutely a dynasty, perhaps the dynasty in the history of AA soccer. I believe that's their 6th title in the last 9 years, but certainly their 3rd straight. So very impressive for Missoula Hellgate. On the Class AA girls side, Billings West played Bozeman Gallatin. First ever state championship match appearance for Gallatin. West, they're old veterans in the last match of the season, and they won for the second time in 3 years. A 1-0 victory to finish off an unbeaten season. So that's the second AA title in the last 3 seasons for the Billings West girls soccer team. And dynasties was the theme across the board. In Class A girls, Laurel held off Billings Central. That's the Rams. They are rivals to earn their 3rd consecutive championship. That's 4 Class A titles in the last 5 years for the Laurel girls. And then finally, the Class A boys, Whitefish beat Columbia Falls 3-2. And that means this is unbelievable. Whitefish, the first 4 consecutive state championships. But the senior class for Whitefish, that means they graduate or they at least complete their high school soccer career with 0 losses. Undefeated for the entire thing. They had a couple ties, but no losses over 4 years. An unbelievable run for Whitefish. I think that they ended up stretching that thing over 60 matches in a row. So pretty darn impressive. Prep Extra, presented by Farmers State Bank. We're going to have a little bit more Prep Extra in about 15 minutes as we break down some high school football. as well. But the Prep Extra is proudly presented by Farmers State Bank. Farmers State Bank, enriching the lives of Montanans since 1907. Let's talk some Grizz soccer. Why do you look so forlorn?
Well, I just wanted to talk about that Whitefish Columbia Falls game.
Let's go
for a second.
Bring it in.
Because I was following some tweets on this.
Okay.
And as you know, this was happening whenever. Over the weekend, we were focusing on Grizz football stuff.
Sure.
Stuff like that. The end of this Whitefish Columbia Falls game, even crazier than the Hellgate game because it was back and forth. Whitefish went ahead 3-2 with a couple minutes left. Columbia Falls had a penalty shot in the last minute, not in a penalty shootout, just in the run of play, foul in the box, whatever. Penalty kick to tie it, potentially at 3-3 and send it to overtime. Whitefish's goalie saved it. So what a play. To me, that's even more dramatic than like a last second winning goal.
Absolutely, it is. That's awesome. I know that you just now diving back into this because you've only been here for about 3 months with us here at ESPN Missoula. Andrew Houghton, by the way, our producer, chiming in on some soccer. Is soccer catered to dynasties? And if so, is that why there's these dynasties in the high school level? I mean, because right now you're talking about every single one of these state champions. I mean, Billings West is in the back of the pack, having won 2 out of 3. I mean, you're talking 4 years in a row undefeated. I think Laurel has played in 10 straight title matches, and they've won 4 out of the last 5. So, I mean, it seems like I actually have a theory about the Class A level for sure, but is soccer conducive to dynasties?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, too, when you were reading through the scores, and I was trying to think of what the reasons for it are, and that maybe, it is sort of a new sport, and we're talking here multiple decades at this point for Montana high school soccer. But I mean, when you talk about football and basketball traditions and schools going back into the 1950s, whatever, it's not really on the same level. So maybe it's more difficult for some schools to build up their programs in such a short time, and that leads to better results for the schools who actually do have it together. I don't know. That would be my take. I haven't covered a ton of soccer around here, but I'm happy you brought it up because it is really interesting.
I think that at the Montana high school level specifically, there are some socioeconomic influences here as well as some proximity influences. I think that, first of all, let's take Laurel, for example. Laurel is about half an hour from Billings, a little less than half an hour from Billings. So you're talking about a Class A size town that's competing against largely rural and largely isolated towns, but then that has likely a youth program and or a bunch of youth soccer players that are intertwined in the Billings soccer scene. So you're talking about a town of, I don't know, I think Laurel's probably around 10,000 people now, but they're in a metropolitan area of more than 200,000 people. And so the development up to the high school ranks is paramount. Also, there's a lot of money in Laurel because there's a lot of oil money in Laurel. They have one of the nicest field turf stadiums in the state. The East-West Shrine Game football game has been there several times. So they have really good facilities. And then also, I think once you get tradition, it breeds tradition as well. And you look at their opponent, Billings Central, who has perennially been one of their opponents. Well, that's also a private school in the heart of the biggest city in Montana. So there's a multiple different elements that go into that. When you talk about finances and, I don't want to say recruiting, but if you want to go to a private school and know you're going to be on a good soccer team.
A pipeline.
It's a way more of a pipeline. Central has more of control over the quality of its roster than most other Class A schools. Let's just say that.
For sure, and I think for a lot of the rural schools in Montana, the soccer tradition, the football tradition is so baked into it. I mean, what you were talking about in Washington, I was covering that down in Idaho too. I mean, the best small school in my coverage area was American Falls because there was such a huge Mexican, community built up around the agriculture there that had the soccer culture in their blood. So all of that. Last thought for me on the high school soccer stuff and the Hellgate game. I think the last high school soccer game I covered in Montana was a Hellgate game 3 or 4 years ago when they had, Barrett Arthur, a whole bunch of guys who would go on to play in college.
Yep.
I think the thing I remember most from that game is Marcus Anderson, man. He was a freshman then or a sophomore, tiny kid. Came off the bench just running at guys from the right wing. I mean, really creative player. good with the ball at his feet, like just somebody you look at and you're like, man, that kid's a player. Even though he was coming off the bench on this stacked team, he was a lot of fun to watch. So really happy for him.
Totally. And I think that when you talk about the influences of why Hellgate has had a dynasty, I think that what we led with our youth sports segment, FC Missoula, also, I mean, FC Missoula and Missoula Strikers, both outstanding clubs. I think there's a huge club soccer community now in Montana. And I think a lot of those kids are then ending up at Hellgate, and that's why the girls are very good, too. The girls made it to the semifinals of the Class AA state tournament at Hellgate as well. Then we talk about Columbia Falls and Whitefish. Same sort of proximity advantage because it's right by Kalispell. Also, the Whitefish, a very affluent community, so I think that also caters to opportunity, at least early opportunity for soccer, especially when it comes to American soccer. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break, then we're going to come back, talk some high school football, as well as some Grizz soccer as well. So we'll continue a little bit more about the football and dive into some prep football as well. You're listening to ESPN Radio as well as maybe watching SWX Montana Television. This is Nuanez Now. Buying or selling a home can be an intimidating task. Brent Wahlberg and the Wahlberg team of Windermere Real Estate are here to make you feel comfortable no matter where you're at in the process. The official realtors of Grizzly Athletics have more than 4 decades of experience in Western Montana. Brent and his team can not only find you your perfect home or buyer, but they can also teach you about the great city of Missoula and its tradition-laden sports teams. The Wahlberg team works as a family to help fulfill your real estate needs all over Western Montana. If you need help with residential, land, investment, or commercial, give Brent Wahlberg and the Wahlberg team a call today. Why build a work history at a job when you can build a future in your own business? Westpac Wealth Partners is looking for entrepreneurial-minded people who are ready to take their future into their own hands. Nick Tabor and his associates provide clients with financial tools and tested solutions for navigating this complex financial climate. Westpac Wealth also has a work culture that has been recognized as a best workplace in Fortune magazine. If you're ready to start building a business in a long-term career, apply at westpacwealth.com. Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Insurance products offered through Westpac Wealth Partners and Insurance Services, LLC, a DBA of Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC.
Grizz hockey is back this weekend with 2 big conference home games against Eastern Washington University this Friday and Saturday night. The hard-hitting and high-flying Grizz hockey team is looking forward to showing Eastern Washington that Missoula has the best fans in college hockey. Tickets available at the gate, but you can avoid the long lines and get your tickets early at Hockey Wolf on Brook Street. Alcoholic beverages sold at the game, and there's a free shuttle from campus for students. Come see what all the buzz has been about and watch the most exciting show in town. Grizz hockey this Friday and Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. both nights at the Glacier Ice Rink.
Bob Ward's annual Ski Ba Dee Ba Doo sale is on now. Skiers and boarders, this is the preseason sale you don't want to miss. Clothing, gear, and accessories on sale right now during the Ski Ba Dee Ba Doo sale at Bob Ward's. Gear up the entire family for less during Ski Ba Dee Ba Doo. Plus, their layaway programs make getting the gear you want easy. See store for details. Hurry in for big savings on jackets, boots, bindings, skis, boards, and more during the Ski Ba Dee Ba Doo sale at Bob Ward's, your snow sport headquarters.
Ready, set, shop. Have you looked at the calendar? It's time. Forget high-interest credit cards. Apply for a holiday loan from Farmer State Bank. Holiday loans feature low monthly payments that are easy to budget for. Upon approval, you'll have the cash you need for a holiday to remember. Whether it's online or local shopping, travel, whatever. Call Farmer State Bank for details and apply today. Farmer State Bank, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
Football is back, and Nuanez Now has everything you need to know about the weekend for the Grizzlies, the Bobcats, around the Big Sky Conference, and around the Treasure State in the prep ranks, too. Join Colter Nuanez and other contributing guests for the first hour of each Monday's Nuanez Now, beginning at 4 p.m. for compelling analysis, interesting information, interviews, and more. The Montana Football Hour, the first hour of each Monday's Nuanez Now, beginning at 4 p.m. on 102.9 ESPN Missoula and statewide on SWX Montana Television. The Montana Football Hour, presented by Stockman Bank of Montana.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
The Grizz pulled out the spookiest of wins. The Bobcats have a showdown with conference title implications upcoming, and high school postseasons hit a fever pitch over the weekend. Hello, I am Colter Nuanez. Montana was flagged a total of 19 times and officially penalized 12, while also turning the ball over 4 times and seeing senior quarterback Cam Humphrey get knocked out of the game yet again. Yet the Grizz still figured out a way to pull out a bizarre 20-19 win over Southern Utah Saturday in Missoula. The Grizz moved to 3-2 in Big Sky play, 6-2 over overall, while dropping Southern Utah to 1-8. Montana State and Eastern Washington, ranked number 4 and number 5 in this week's poll, respectively, each had byes last week. This week, the two top teams in the Big Sky square off in Cheney, Washington. EWU is looking to bounce back from its first conference loss 2 weeks ago, a 35-34 home loss to Weber State. Montana State has won 7 straight and sits atop the conference standings at 5-0 in Big Sky Conference play. And finally, the high school football playoffs are into the quarterfinals for all classifications, and the Sentinel Spartans know their opponent to begin their postseason title defense. The reigning Class AA champions will take on Great Falls High after the Bison eliminated Missoula Big Sky 41-14. Other AA quarterfinal matchups include Bozeman at Helena, Capital at West, and Butte at Glacier.
This 102.9 ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Yo, welcome back. Nuanez now. ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. I'm Colter Nuanez. Proud to be broadcasting from the Northwest Motorsport Studio. Go hit up Northwest Motorsport online, nwmsrocks.com. That's nwmsrocks.com. Breaking news today, Clay Helton, the ousted coach for USC, has been named the head coach at Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern, a familiar name for people around these parts, particularly people that have been following the Grizzlies for more than 20 years. Georgia Southern was the team in the FCS, I guess, at the Division I AA level in the 1980s and 1990s, 5 national championships, the most recent of which came in 2000 when Georgia Southern defeated Montana in the FCS national, I guess, Division I AA that year, a national championship game. Montana, of course, came back and won the Division I AA national championship the following year in 2001, the most recent national championship for Montana. And we have a podcast series chronicling all that. But Clay Helton now named the head coach at Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern has been an FBS member for quite some time, a little while for sure. I mean, probably 15 years now. So interesting to see that they've landed a coach with the clout of Clay Helton, to be sure. I think some USC fans out there might be bemoaning the fact that Clay Helton was not very great at Georgia Southern, or excuse me, at USC. So maybe won't be great at Georgia Southern either. But it was a little debate there about what program you'd rather be, Georgia Southern or Montana. Georgia Southern does have the 5 national championships. Montana has 2. Georgia Southern's now been up for a little while and has not had a ton of success at the FBS level, and also is in a largely, I don't want to say non-competitive league, but the Sun Belt, doesn't matter if you go undefeated in the Sun Belt, you're still not going to be a part of the national championship picture at the Division 1A level, the FBS level. So I don't know. Maybe that's a debate to be continued. Maybe we'll hash that one out a little bit later on. More from the prep world, more Prep Extra, presented by Farmers State Bank, enriching the lives of Montanans since 1907. Let's look a little bit at some high school football, why don't we? The playoffs in full force around the state of Montana. AA, A, B, and C all into the quarterfinals. And we touched a little bit on AA, but here's your scoreboard from over the weekend. By the way, the AA format, if you have not been paying attention, 12 teams of the 16 make it in. 4 get first-round byes. The conference champion from each of the East and the West get the top seeds. So you got the byes were from Sentinel, the top seed in the West, Billings West, the top seed in the East, and then as well as Butte and Bozeman, your 4 teams that received byes. So here's the 8 teams for the 4 first-round games to get into the quarterfinals. Helena Capital took down Great Falls CMR 45-7. Helena High topped Bozeman Gallatin 45-28. Kalispell Glacier got past Billings Senior 21-14. Great Falls High defeated Missoula Big Sky 41-14. And so here's what your quarterfinals matchups look like. Friday night here in Missoula, Great Falls High will play at Missoula Sentinel. Great Falls High's won 6 in a row. Sentinels won 18 in a row dating back to last year. They are the defending Class AA state champions and have not lost again this year after an undefeated year last year. But Great Falls High started 0-4, and they've won 6 in a row since then. So definitely one of the hottest teams in the state. They've definitely improved tremendously. We had Mark Sampson, longtime football coach from around the state of Montana, who is Great Falls High's current head football coach, on the show last week. If you want to check that out, it is available on the Nuanez Now podcast. That was last Thursday that we had Coach Sampson on. So for those of you that like numbers and dates, it was October 28th if you want to go find that on the Nuanez Now podcast. Great interview, very interesting. But Great Falls High, they do come to Missoula Sentinel this weekend on Friday. Helena, they play at Bozeman. So it's an 8-2 Bengals team at a 5-4 Bozeman team. So Bozeman getting the home game because of their status as the number 2 team in the East. Helena Capital will play at Billings West. The Golden Bears have won 8 in a row after dropping their first game of the season, a non-conference game, 22-19 here in Missoula at Washington Grizzly Stadium against Missoula Sentinel. And then Kalispell Glacier, they will play at Butte. So Glacier 7-3, Butte 6-3. So that should be a good game. That's probably the most even matchup of those 4, although it will be interesting because I think Helena High is really good. I think they're actually a legitimate title contender. And them having to go on the road, though, is interesting. And I also think the Missoula Sentinel's rolling right now for sure, but Great Falls High is rolling right now, too. And Great Falls High is one of the most special athletes in the state of Montana in Reed Harris. He is everything you want in a prospect. I have no idea if he could play quarterback at the college level. In fact, as of right now, I know he certainly could not. But he is absolutely a college-level athlete. He's 6'5 plus, 200 pounds plus. He's a state championship caliber 100-meter runner. He is one of the best basketball players in the state, and even now, right now, he's only a junior. So he gives Great Falls High a chance every time out. Prep Extra presented by Farmers State Bank. Forget those high-interest credit cards. Apply for a holiday loan at Farmers State Bank. Count on fast approval times, low interest, and easy payments. OAC. In the Class A ranks, Hamilton was one of the 4 teams that had a bye, as was defending champion Laurel. The first round included Miles City defeating Columbia Falls 21-20. Billings Central in a rout 54-12 over Libby. Sidney takes down Dillon 17-14. And in the upset of the weekend at the Class A level, Frenchtown ousts Whitefish 24-13. The Bulldogs have been rolling right along, but Frenchtown knocks them out. So the quarterfinals, which will take place on Saturday, those Frenchtown Broncs, they got to go to defending state champion Laurel. That'll be a 1 p.m. kickoff at Laurel. Billings Central will go on the road to play at Polson, another one of the teams that had a bye. Our Andrew Houghton caught up with Jarrett Wilson, the Polson Pirates quarterback, I guess 2 weeks ago now. That's also available on the podcast. But Billings Central at Polson will be a good one. Miles City against Hamilton. So Hamilton hosting a game on Saturday afternoon. That'll also be an interesting game because the top teams in the East, like Laurel, Miles City, and Billings Central, have been a thorn in the side of the Broncs, man. Hamilton likes to play fast, up-tempo. They use their athleticism on the perimeter quite a bit. But the rough and tumble, sort of old-school hit-you-in-the-mouth style of some of those Eastern A teams have been hard for Hamilton to handle. A lot of times it's just a giant game of keep-away, and the Broncs can't get rolling. So interesting draw for the first game of the playoffs for a Hamilton team that's been undefeated and number 1 in the state for most of this season. And then the final quarterfinal matchup in Class A features Sidney playing at Lewistown. So Sidney to Lewistown. Lewistown, one of the best stories in the state. They have not had a lot of success in football over the years, but they are having it this year, and it comes with a little bit of an emotional side story. I shouldn't even say it's a side story. It is the main story of the Lewistown, I guess the Fergus County High Golden Eagles. Young man Dylan Morris, offensive and defensive lineman for that team. He passed away in a car wreck a couple weeks ago. So condolences always, and of course to his family and everybody that knew him. But a couple emotional scenes so far for Lewistown since that tragic incident, and I think that they're using it to spur them on because they've been really good in those games. It's amazing. to use that as a response like that. But it seems like they're really playing for that kid, so good for them. That's definitely one of the most heartbreaking, but also if they are to go on a run, and even if they don't, they've already gotten a bye. They're in the quarterfinals of the playoffs. One of the better Lewistown teams there's been in the last couple decades. So already a really an emotional story, we'll say that. Prep Extra presented by Farmer State Bank. In Class B, here's your first-round scores. No buys or anything like that in Class B. It's just straight up 16 teams, 8 first-round games. Top seeded Florence Carlton, no problem against Cut Bank, 37-0. Columbus, no problem against Baker, 50-8. Whitehall, a good one against Malta, 34-22. So that's a big win by Whitehall. I think that not a lot of people expected that over Malta, but a good win by them. Jefferson beats a good Red Lodge team, 7-0. So that's another hard-fought victory. Townsend, not much problem with Shepherd, 38-8. Big Fork destroyed Glasgow. Glasgow's been really good defensively, and so a little bit of a surprise there. But Big Fork, 49-0 over Glasgow to move on. Big Timber, big-time upset over Huntley Project, 32-28. So good for them. And Eureka wins 42-12. So here's what your final 8 look like. Columbus will play at Florence Carlton, so the Falcons remain at home and remain looking like they have the inside track to the Class B state championship. Whitehall is at Jefferson. That Whitehall team, by the way, 3-5, so just 2 wins to get into the playoffs, but then they go win themselves a playoff game. So hard to say they didn't belong because here they are moving on. They'll play at Jefferson. Big Fork is at Townsend. That's a good game. A lot of good athletes in both those schools, really, really athletic at the Class B level. Townsend has a couple really good guys, a couple maybe even potential Big Sky caliber guys. So we'll see how that one plays out. And then Big Timber at Eureka. So there's your quarterfinals matchup. And Class C 6-man, or Class C 8-man, probably the most pertinent score for people listening to this show. 2-time defending state champion Drummond Phillipsburg. That's Flint Creek. They beat Sheridan 55-7. Here's your 8-man quarterfinals. Belt at Thompson Falls. Thompson Falls remains undefeated. Scobie at Park City. The Trojans, the Flint Creek Trojans, they got to go on the road. So they're at Fairview, despite being 8-0. And then St. Ignatius, they are at Fort Benton. Your quarterfinals at the 6-man level looks like this. Power Dutton Brady, that co-op is at White Sulphur Springs. Richie Lambert is at Shields Valley in Wilsall. Bridger is at Freud Lake in Medicine Lake. And Big Sandy is at DGSGRW. So I don't even know what that stands for, but it's a co-op between several different towns, but that game will be played in Stanford, Montana. So there you go. There's your high school football scores. Some more on high school sports, including some of the best performances from around the state. It's our Treasure State Stars. Keep it right here. It's Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Tires, introducing the new Backcountry AT2 for a quieter ride with improved performance in wet conditions. Because when it comes to keeping your family safe on the road this winter, the right tires help you feel prepared for anything.
Mom, hey Mom.
Well, almost anything. Plus, save up to $130 when you buy Quatrac tires with financing. Les Schwab Tires. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply. See leschwab.com/sale for details.
Paul Ryan is a name that's been synonymous with law around the Garden City for decades. And Paul is excited to announce the expansion of his firm to Ryan, Holloway, and Miller. Paul Ryan, Nate Holloway, and Angie Miller have a fierce love for their community, and they want to help you with any of your legal needs. From auto accidents to medical malpractice to wrongful death or any criminal defense, Ryan, Holloway, and Miller should be your first call. When it comes to personal injury or criminal defense, call Ryan, Holloway, and Miller today. Ryan, Holloway, and Miller, your Montana attorneys. Colter Nuanez here from your favorite daily sports talk show, Nuanez Now. I know most of you are like me. You keep your precious car outside in this frigid Montana weather. If you want to change your outlook on those freezing Monday mornings, do what I did. Get yourself an automatic car starter at Aspen Sound. Aspen Sound will install the starter for you efficiently and keep you warm. Aspen Sound can also hook you up with sweet window tinting or a top-notch sound system for your vehicle. Stop by Aspen Sound at 1300 West Broadway in Missoula today.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Open your new Stockman bank account anytime, anywhere with online account opening. Now, you can open an account in minutes on your laptop, tablet, or mobile phone. It's convenient, simple, and secure. Open your new account today at stockmanbank.com. Then add our online and mobile banking services so you can manage your money when, where, and how you want. Stockman Bank, Montana's brand of banking. Member FDIC.
Fresh ingredients combined with home-style recipes are what we're serving on the Montana Club's Fall Comfort Food Menu. Warm up with the Osso Buco or hearty chicken fried chicken, or savor our hot in the skillet chicken pot pie. Of course, cool days call for yummy desserts. Cap things off with the club's creamy pumpkin skillet a la mode or skillet apple pie. Visit your Montana Club today. Full menu at montanaclub.com. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Colter Nuanez of ESPN Missoula and Skyline Sports is entering his 11th season covering the Montana State football beat. Over the last decade plus, Colter has gotten to know many memorable Bobcats, from future NFL offensive linemen like Mike Person and J.P. Flynn to record-setting quarterbacks like Denarius McGee and Dakota Prukop to award-winning defensive linemen like Brad Daly and Caleb Schreibeis. This fall, Colter has launched a new Catching Up with the Cats podcast series. Subscribe to the Big Sky Breakdown and tune into Nuanez Now to hear this new podcast series.
This is Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio Missoula.
I haven't heard a little. Is this POD? Is that what we're listening to right now? I haven't heard a little Youth of the Nation in a little while. That's some Gus Tutel music right there. That's what Ryan's getting down on. Ryan's probably actually legitimately listening to POD and or Project 86 while on a flight to South Africa. I think he might have been on that flight since yesterday. I don't even know how long it takes. The guy and his traveling escapades with his children, though, is something to behold. It takes a spectacular level of patience to be able to drive across the country with 3 children under the age of 8, let alone wrangle them through multiple airports on an international trip in the midst of a global pandemic. Definitely crazy. But for those who missed the memo from our ESPN College Game Day on Saturday, our good friend Ryan Tutel, who's was the co-host of this show for with me for 4 years, and has been contributing on our College Game Day pre- and post-game shows here these last couple outings. He is on his way to South Africa to go visit his wonderful sister, Kelsey. Hello, Kelsey, if by chance you're listening. I know you listen sometimes with the massive time difference between now and South Africa. But good luck, safe travels, Gus, and hopefully you're listening to some POD. This is Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio. Time now for Treasure State Stars. But before we do that, I oftentimes when I go stop into Tagliari Deli, they are kind enough to let me have something to sample on, something to talk about, something to try. So I think I've tried dang near every sandwich there. But, one Tagliari is a lot. It's not. It's good. It's you can never have enough. But, trying to get in shape, whatever. All I'm saying is I was craving this real bad, so I wasn't even waiting for my free one. I had to go right in there and get myself one the other day, and man, was it good, man. I got myself a little Beach Boy. That garlic aioli, spicy, savory, delicious. Tagliari Deli is located at the corner of Beckwith and Higgins here in Missoula, right next to the roundabout there. And if you want some Tagliari, we got some for you. Voted the best sandwich in the state of Montana by both People Magazine as well as the Food Network. Give us a call right now, 888-1029. That's 406-888-1029. Caller number 3, we have $25 to Tagliari Delicatessen for you. One lucky winner. And if you don't win, head on in there anyways. You have all sorts of things that you can decide upon, whether it's wine or pasta or some specialty sauces, a cheese and meats plate, or, of course, the sandwiches. Each and every Tuesday it's Tagliari Tuesday, so stay tuned for all that. Dive into our Treasure State Stars presented by Parkside Credit Union. Parkside Credit Union, one of the best places in Montana to get a loan because they love to say yes. Treasure State Star number 1, we talked about him a little bit off the top, but an awesome moment for Marcus Anderson. He's a Missoula Hellgate senior. He hit the game-winning goal in the final minute of extra time to lift Hellgate to a 1-0 victory over Kalispell Glacier in the Class AA state title match. That's 3 straight Class AA state titles for the Hellgate Knights. So very impressive for Marcus Anderson. What a moment for him, his teammates, and that program. 3 in a row for Hellgate on the heels of a literally last-minute goal in extra time. Treasure State Star number 2, it's Eric Kinnaman. Eric Kinnaman's a former Montana State football player who's been a coach at Belgrade High School for 21 years, including the last 15 as the head coach. Earlier this week, Kinnaman retired from the head coaching position at Belgrade. It's been tough sledding for Belgrade since they moved up to Class AA, just 2-21 in 3 seasons. But Kinnaman was incredibly successful during his 12 years as the head coach in Class A, 67-52 over those 12 years. Had a couple really good seasons where they won 5, 6, 7, 8 games. And I covered a couple of Belgrade teams that were outstanding, a couple of the best guys to come out of Montana the last several years. Derek Marks and Braden Conkle, each who went to play at Montana State, and Kinnaman had a big hand in their development. So congratulations to Coach Kinnaman. He and his wife are great people, very, very friendly and accommodating, and it was always fun covering him when I was over there in Bozeman at the Chronicle, but also as a source for some Montana State history as well. So congratulations to Coach Kinnaman on a great career, and Belgrade have a hard time replacing that guy. He was a hardworking guy that had a lot of success. 3 semifinal appearances at the Class A level, 3 conference titles, 9 winning records in 12 years. So a good string there, especially during the Class A era under Eric Kinnaman for Belgrade. Treasure State Star number 3. We're giving it to the entire Frenchtown team. This is the 6th seed out of the West. That's the bottom seed. 6 teams from the West, 6 teams from the East get in. And 6 team out of the West, the Frenchtown Broncs, they upset Whitefish. The Broncs trailed 13-10 in the 4th quarter, but they scored a touchdown with 5:38 left, and Frenchtown goes on to win 24-13. Really good performance by Frenchtown to knock out a Whitefish team that had been rolling right along. So congratulations there to Frenchtown. Treasure State Star number 4, Dawson Sweat from Townsend, Montana. He ran for 3 touchdowns to help lift Townsend to a 38-8 win over Shepherd. And the Bulldogs now 8-1 and into the quarterfinals of the Class B playoffs. Certainly one of the contenders to potentially knock off Florence Carlton. I think Townsend has a lot of talent, high-level talent, especially for the Class B level. Treasure State Star number 5, Remington Little. What a great name. Scored 5 touchdowns to help Eureka roll past Fairfield 42-12. So the Lions into the quarterfinals of the Class B playoffs. Little had a couple rushing touchdowns in the first quarter. Then he opened up the third quarter with a rushing touchdown, and he had another rushing touchdown in the fourth quarter. He also caught a 1-yard touchdown pass, so 5 total touchdowns for Remington Little. There you go. That's your Treasure State Stars for this week, the first week in November. Congratulations to our Tagliari Tuesday winner, John. Appreciate you calling in. Appreciate all the interest in that giveaway. It's always hilarious to watch the phone lines. We got like 10 phone lines here. And when we do the Tagliari, this is how you know you're making some good sandwiches. Because when we do that one, all the buttons light up, and it's lickety-split. Hard to get that prize. So congratulations to John for winning it. Hour 1 in the books. Hour 2 coming at you. We're going to talk all the way around the Big Sky Conference, including hearing from Eastern Washington head coach Aaron Best. His team ranked number 5 in the country. They host the number 4 ranked Montana State Bobcats on Saturday afternoon. And Coach Best, he's doing a great job. I was a little down on Eastern Washington coming into this year, wondering if they could maintain the momentum, if they could maintain the prestige and the swagger that they had under Bo Baldwin. Now that the majority of the roster belongs to Aaron Best, there's been a full coaching staff overturn there at Eastern Washington as well. That second year under Coach Best, they went all the way to the national championship. That always then caters toward FCS assistants getting elevated opportunities, and a lot of those guys took those opportunities and they left Eastern Washington. So I was wondering just where Eastern Washington would go. I didn't think they were going to fall off the face of the earth. In fact, I know that they wouldn't because they have a defined identity. They have perhaps the most defined identity anybody in the Big Sky Conference. I think that's one of, if not the primary reason they have been one of the best in the Big Sky for most of the last 10 years, most of the last 15 years, really. At least though through the 2010s. But it's pretty clear that even though Eric Berry is sort of the last man standing from the Bo Baldwin era, this is a well-coached team and a team that I think that they're buying what Aaron Best is selling, and that's all that matters. Doesn't matter what a coach is selling, just matters if most of the players are buying it. Seems like Eastern Washington is. So it should be a good showdown on Saturday in Cheney. Missed anything in this first hour, you can always find it on the podcast, which is proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications, Wingate by Wyndham Hotel, and Sportsbet Montana. You are listening to Nuanez now on ESPN Radio. Eastern Washington head coach Aaron Best, as well as talk about all things Big Sky Conference football with our good friend Andrew Houghton. Keep it right here, ESPN Radio. Hey, it's Colter Nuanez from Nuanez Now here with Brent Wahlberg of the Wahlberg team at Windermere Real Estate. It's a complicated real estate market right now. What do you think is the biggest challenge?
This is a real tough market for buyers because what we have right now is an unprecedented lack of available options, low supply. You have to be extra competitive. You've got to make your first offer your strongest offer. Experts like myself in this market can really help people do that.
Call Brent Wahlberg and the Wahlberg team at 529-4663 today. Do you remember how fond you were of your baseball cards as a kid? To recapture that feeling, swing into Zootown Sports Cards. Missoula's premier trading card shop carries all the products you will need for collecting, whether you are renewing an old hobby, just getting started, or looking for a fun activity for your kids. With inventory that is updated regularly, Zootown Sports Cards has the best selections at the best prices anywhere in the valley. Open from noon till 6 on Tuesday through Friday and 10 to 6 on Saturdays. Come check out Zootown Sports Cards at South Avenue in Higgins across from Dornblazer Field. Sometimes all the sports commentary gets a little bit exhausting. That's not true. You love sports, but we like to bring the laughs, and sometimes we like to make fun of ourselves a little bit as well, and that's what Carolyn, the chick who doesn't know sports, brings to Nuanez Now each Thursday.
Well, okay, so speaking of soccer, last week we talked about Malice in the Palace.
Well, yes.
Well, this week in France, as I like to say, since I'm from Chicago, France, there was a Malice in the Palace, or whatever. I don't know how you say it in French. But there was a team between Nice and Marseille.
Sure.
Anyway, ended up.
We are such uneducated Americans.
I am not. Listen, I can say croissant and French fry and Cabernet.
Catch Carolyn, the chick who doesn't know sports, each Thursday on 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
I can't believe we have to make this commercial.
It's ridiculous.
You'll think it's ridiculous too. Listen to this.
This commercial is about, well, it's about parents being rude at high school athletic events.
Ridiculous, right?
It gets worse. Studies show more than 75% of new high school officials are quitting because of bad adult behavior.
So now there's a shortage of refs here in Montana. In almost all sports.
No officials means no more games.
Is that what you want for us?
Come on, parents.
It's time to grow up.
Cheer for your team.
Be proud of your children.
But stop being so ridiculous.
And don't make us run another commercial.
Because we will.
This message presented by the Montana High School Association and the Montana Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association, reminding you to always practice good sportsmanship.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
The Grizz pulled out the spookiest of wins. The Bobcats have a showdown with conference title implications upcoming, and high school postseasons hit a fever pitch over the weekend. Hello, I am Colter Nuanez. Montana was flagged a total of 19 times and officially penalized 12, while also turning the ball over 4 times and seeing senior quarterback Cam Humphrey get knocked out of the game yet again. Yet the Grizz still figured out a way to pull out a bizarre 20-19 win over Southern Utah Saturday in Missoula. The Grizz moved to 3-2 in Big Sky play, 6-2 overall, while dropping Southern Utah to 1-8. Montana State and Eastern Washington ranked number 4 and number 5 in this week's poll, respectively. Each had byes last week. This week, the 2 top teams in the Big Sky square off in Cheney, Washington. EWU is looking to bounce back from its first conference loss 2 weeks ago, a 35-34 home loss to Weber State. Montana State has won 7 straight and sits atop the conference standings at 5-0 in Big Sky Conference play. And finally, the high school football playoffs are into the quarterfinals for all classifications, and the Sentinel Spartans know their opponent to begin their postseason title defense. The reigning Class AA champions will take on Great Falls High after the Bison eliminated Missoula Big Sky 41-14. Other AA quarterfinal matchups include Bozeman at Helena, Capital at West, and Butte at Glacier. This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Selway Armory. What's up, Montana? Happy Tuesday. A little dreary here in western Montana, but it's always a great day to be alive when you live in the Treasure State. This is Nuanez Now, your one-stop shop for all things sports, all the way across the Treasure State. I'm Colter Nuanez. We do this each weekday from 4 to 6 p.m. right here on ESPN Radio. Maybe you're watching in SWX Montana Television. Proud to be coming to you from the Northwest Motorsport Studio. Northwest Motorsport, new to Missoula, located at the corner of Stevens and Mount. You can find them there or online at nwmsrocks.com. That's nwmsrocks.com. They boast the largest inventory of trucks anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. Missed anything the first hour of the show? You can find it all on the Nuanez Now podcast. You're going to want to subscribe to that. It's going to get you entered into our fall giveaway. I'm going to keep telling you until you all do it. I know that there's millions of you out there listening right now, so do it. Subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow ESPN Radio, ESPN Missoula, that is, and Alpine Touch and Haymaker Beef on the Instagram and the Facebook. And then text us, 888-1029. That's 406-888-1029. And that'll get you entered into our fall giveaway. All sorts of sweet prizes. We got grills, we got otter boxes, we got coolers from Twisted Tea. We also got a Traeger smoker plus a beef box from Haymaker Beef and a boatload of Alpine Touch. So go do it. It's easy. You still got 3 weeks. We're giving this away November 19th, and then we're going to give it to you at our pregame tailgate show on November 20th down there at the Chamber of Commerce parking lot adjacent to the walking bridge. I've been, so I love sports, obviously. That's why I have this job. I've always liked to consider myself an athlete. Probably nowhere nearly as good as I hoped that I would be. And so I went into sports journalism rather than pursuing athletics. But always loved participating in sports. Love skiing and hiking, boxing, and all forms of martial arts. My dad was super into martial arts. Loved basketball. Shout out to all my boys on my champion City League basketball team from over there in Bozeman. We used to have a squad, man. A couple ex-Bobcat guys playing for me, so that was always fun. That's all to say, though. Probably the sport I've always been the best at and most engaged in is lifting weights. And, for some personal reasons and some inner demons, let's say. I mean, I'm only laughing to spite myself only just because it is a little bit of a sensitive subject. But regardless, we won't go down that rabbit hole right now. But definitely gravitated away from lifting since I got back to Missoula for a variety of reasons, several of which that just sort of haunted my mind. But I'm getting back into it. And so if you're out there and you're looking to get back into it, I mean, I know that I'm oftentimes talking about my spin classes. I hit those every once in a while. That's been something new, good addition to my life. That's been fun. But I've been hitting the weight room last couple weeks, and not going to lie, man, feels good. Feels good to be pushing some iron for sure. But if you're out there and you're looking to get back into it, do it. Whatever it is, do it. I promise you, you'll feel better about yourself. You'll feel better about your day. You'll feel better physically. You'll feel better mentally. I got in the mindset for a little while. I didn't have the time, and I still don't have any time, but you got to take some time for yourself. And there's always a way to multitask. I know it's not ideal, but we do have every single possible piece of information on the planet in our pockets on this computer that we carry around that we call a cell phone. And, so like the other day, I went for a jog when I was in the midst of a press conference with head coach Brent Vigen from Montana State, who, by the way, will join us here tomorrow for the Montana State Minute. Letting Alex Elsherman off the hook for a week because, not for any other reason than besides Brent Vigen was kind enough to grant us a one-on-one. So we'll have Coach Vigen on to preview the Montana State Eastern Washington matchup Saturday in Cheney. I will be heading over there myself. Jason Bocci going to make the trip that way. We got Andrew Outman staying here because he's going to be watching the Grizz game down in Greeley. So you can find all that coverage, as always, SkylineSportsMT.com. Speaking of our trip to Cheney, time now for our Across the Sideline. We do this a couple times a week here on Nuanez Now. It's presented in part by Mike Nugent and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate. Real estate market in Montana right now, especially Western Montana, it's popping off. It's going crazy. There's all sorts of things. I just bought a house. I can't believe I did it. I wouldn't have been able to do it without some advice from my good friend Mike Nugent. And so no matter where you're at in your real estate journey, you're buying, you're selling, residential, commercial, no matter where you're at, Mike Nugent and the real estate experts at Berkshire Hathaway, they got you covered. They got the answers to all your questions. So go ahead and give them a call, 531-1802. That's 531-1802. Across the Sideline, presented by Mike Nugent and Berkshire Hathaway, reminding you that every question is good to ask. We were joined by Aaron Best, Eastern Washington head coach, to talk all about the Bobcats coming to town. Well, time now for our first repeat Across the Sidelines, where we profile and interview coaches for the opponents of the Montana football schools. This week, Montana State headed to Cheney, Washington to take on Eastern Washington. The second top 10 showdown we've seen on the Inferno this year already in just about the span of a month. So a ton of big games going through Eastern Washington. Very fun. We welcome in now Eastern Washington head coach Aaron Best. And, Coach, pleasure talking to you again. Now that it's November, what does that mean to you? How does the mindset change when the calendar flips to the last month of the regular season?
Well, obviously when you're playing meaningful games this late in the season, 3 games left, means you've done some good things up to this point. We're very accustomed to meaningful games in November, late October, early November, into November, and so when you have good teams playing good teams on your home field, Senior Day is upon us, believe it or not, with 2 road games to follow. This one against the Bobcats, and so a lot of stuff going on. But like I said, there's a lot of teams that wish that they were in Montana State and ours choose playing meaningful games at this time of year, and so we're going to take every advantage of it, prepare like we've done week in and week out, and play our best in front of our home fans for our last scheduled game on the Red this season.
Well, talking about your team's last outing, speaking of on the Red, Weber State comes in 35-34 victory over Eastern Washington in Cheney. Just take us through the game, Coach, because it seemed like sort of a strange one. A lot of special teams plays, some fake punts, and all that. But at the end of the day, your team's first conference loss going into a bye. But what played out in the Weber State game?
Well, a couple things stood out. From the standpoint of watching it firsthand, and then obviously seeing it, from a secondhand version film-wise multiple times. Coach Hill obviously is a monster in the special teams world, defensive guy as well. We knew they were going to play their best against us at home with their backs against the wall. Obviously coming in 2-4 was their record. Obviously they're well beyond the 2-4 record, and we knew that going in. Didn't take them lightly. Never do anybody, but they steal 3 possessions on 3 fake punts. in the same game. I mean, it's hard to do in a season, let alone a coaching career, and then they did it in 60 minutes of football. So they exposed us in a few situations, and those 3 punts, we ended up giving up. Luckily enough, defense kept us in, only 13 points off those 3 fake punts. One of them right before half, which they scored a little bit of a momentum field goal going in. But all the while, giving up 3 fake punts, extending drives for the defense that just came off the field to put a punt return team on the field. They go back out, so that's also a mental piece as well as a physical piece. 3 turnovers on offense, and we had 6 possessions in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, that we garnered 0 points and had a time possession of just over 5 minutes on offense, and still was an extra point to tie it up with 2 and change left in the game. So we didn't play our best against a very good, very stout football team. Defensively, they threw some looks at us. They changed coverage up enough. Didn't play as much man as they had shown on film. And credit to those coaches and those players for executing the game plan they put in. And, we in a weird way, you look at the stats. The stats are stats. They don't lie, but they don't tell the whole story. We outrushed Weber, but they outpassed Eastern. So it was an odd combination, an odd day, and they scored 1 more point. That's the that's the name of the game. You got to score more than your opponent. They came into our house and beat us at our field, and so credit goes to them.
Well, what, if any, were the primary points that you pointed at in terms of just cleaning stuff up, or what sort of improvements do you hope your team made since then, especially with a bye week leading up to this showdown on Saturday?
Well, I think situational IQ is always something we stress, whether it's, OD or special teams. When a defense holds and you get in a situation where it's 4th and whatever, and they run punt teams on, your defense just came off field, got a small victory. Then your punt return unit comes on, which a couple of those guys are on defense, but not the entire defense, stays out there. They're coming off the field, sit down for a matter of 15 or 20 seconds and get back on the field. We've got to increase our situational awareness when you get an opportunity in those incremental plays. You may not play 80 plays a game. You may play 8, but those 8 plays, you got to stress your situational awareness. We got to communicate numbers that are abnormal in formations and in settings, and we've got to just flat out execute better at the foundational things. Kicking extra points is something that we do week in and week out, and we do a good job of it with a great kicker to boot. We just, those guys are humans too. They do make mistakes, and you hope those aren't mistakes, at the end of the game to tie up a game that had a lot of momentum shifts in it. But we came back after the bye week, got a couple practices in, had a great practice yesterday, energized, and these guys are hungry. And that's what a good team, that's what a mature team does after something that left a bad taste in our mouth after that Weber game. So it's a learning experience, not something we wanted to occur, but quite possibly needed to occur to kind of refocus ourselves and get back to do what we do best, and that's playing fast and playing complementary football.
Aaron Best joining us across the sideline, where we feature head coaches from around the Big Sky Conference each week here on Nuanez Now. It's ESPN Radio as well as SWX Montana Television. And, Coach, let's talk about this upcoming matchup. First and foremost, I know I've asked you about him about 50 times now over the last several years, but I got to ask you again about Eric Barrier, only because we know now he's the best player in the country, but I just find it so amazing that everybody knows it, and he still continues to display lights-out football. So what do you thought of just his mentality to be able to handle everybody's best shot, handle that spotlight, and still go out and almost never have a dip on Saturdays?
Well, I think it comes with his personality, the way he's built. I mean, he's pretty unflappable in a lot of situations. So when you have quote-unquote pressure situations or big moments or must need points out of drives, I mean, when you're unflappable, those are the guys you lean on. So there's times where I'll lean on him saying thank you for the look of patience, the look of confidence, the look of, collectiveness when it's all said and done. And so he'll wink at me and say, "We got this, coach." So we feed off each other, and I think that's one of his mainstays. Obviously, talent aside, talent only goes so far, but his growth has really been in the film room, identifying defenses, seeing defenses, and seeing the manipulations he sees throughout the game, usually they start early. Everybody kind of plays us differently than the other teams that we see on film against the same opponent because of the fact that we have receivers, because we get in certain sets, because we have, let's be honest, Eric Berrier. So they're trying to do some different things. Jay Hill did some different things, not just defensively, but offensively up-tempo. A lot of teams are trying to steal possessions from our team because of the amount of points and yards that we have occurred through 8 games. And so, and Eric Berry is the biggest part of that asset that we have on offense. And I think our team inevitably feeds off that. Our defense loves us to play fast and score points. Our special teams is excited to, get on the field and kick off and hit extra points. And so Eric Berry is second to none. And we've got a long list of quarterbacks that have played really, really good ball here for a long period of time, and he's up there with them. I'm not going to rank him, but I'll tell you what, he is one of my favorites. Just watching him do his thing on Saturdays, he is fun to watch, fun to coach, and I'm proud to know him and be part of his journey through these 6 years.
Well, no question. He's definitely one of the most fun players we've ever covered, both Skyline Sports and ESPN Missoula. It's unbelievable to watch him. It's almost like must-see TV. We turn on the stream, or I always make sure to at least rewatch it afterwards because he's just so fun to watch. Coach, let's talk about the Montana State defense against your offense. Montana State's been very good up front. They've been very good throughout their defense, quite frankly. But the pass rush been particularly good, and their ability to stop the run been particularly good. So what do you think of just the matchup with the Bobcat defense when Eastern Washington has the ball?
Well, you said the top two things. Their pass rush is good, and they stop the run. So what else do you need to do on defense to be great, right? And what they do is they cause turnovers on top of those first two things you mentioned. They're plus 12 in the turnover margin. I don't know where it sets that nationally, but I know that's number one in the Big Sky. So they don't give the ball up offensively. They take the ball away defensively, and a lot of that is because they force you to pass the ball because they stop the run. And when you do pass the ball, they're exotic in their looks, especially on third down situations, and they confuse offensive lines. And it helps on top of the scheme, on top of the passion, on top of the emotion they play with. They got some pretty damn good players. And one of them in particular has been around a long time, Troy Anderson, that's played I don't know how many positions you can play in football, 25, including kicker, punter, and long snapper. He's probably played 21 of them. Hell, in 2018, he played D and a quarterback in the same game. I don't know if that's ever happened in the collegiate experience ever, but I saw firsthand, and I wouldn't be surprised if Coach Vegan puts him in the saddle of quarterback in a must-have-it situation. Even though McKay's played really well up to this point, you're going to lean on your guys in tough moments. He's shown that he's done it. He's resilient. He's one of the better football players in the country. And then obviously Mr. Hardy, you always got to be aware of him. They move him around. They give him series off to get re-energized, reloaded. He is the best pure pass rusher I've seen on film in this league in a long time. There's been some good ones, and Tristan Taylor and I talked this week a lot about kind of the guys that rushed the passer well before he got here. Those Zach Nashes, I'm trying to think the Bushes of the world, the Holmeses of the world. I mean, those guys were almost week in and week out back in the day in the Big Sky, which I'm sure you're well aware of. And Daniel Hardy is he's a very, very, very polished player. He makes a lot of plays. He plays with high emotion. He plays on special teams, so he doesn't come up the field very much. But when he does, they're giving him rest so he can go out and do what he does best, and that's make life miserable for offensive tackles, running backs, and quarterbacks. And so it's fun to watch. When you're giving up less than 10 points a game, you must respect the work that they've done up to this point through 8 games.
Well, no doubt. You mentioned Tristan Taylor. I know that I love talking about offensive linemen. I know you're a former offensive lineman. What sort of steadiness do you think he brings your group up front, and how important is that to what you guys do offensively?
No, I hate to compare, but I think personality-wise, he's a little bit like Eric. Nothing really gets him too high. Nothing really gets him too low. He's a fierce competitor, even though he may not play as emotional or as abstract as some of the players that we may have on our team. He studies a game. He's the first in here on Monday morning on days off, and he's watching the previous game. He's watching sequences. He's watching situations. He's not just a fan of the game. He knows he's watching specific situations, and the best do that. They don't watch necessarily just first down. They watch P and 10. They don't necessarily watch second down. They watch red zone second downs. They're trying to create an edge, and so having a guy like Tristan been around here for a long time. In his seventh fall, he's played a lot of ball, and this is one of the best challenges he'll have in his career, no matter if it's FBS or FCS. So big players make big plays in big games. That's what Mike Kramer said a long time ago when I was a freshman. I didn't really realize that because I wasn't a big player, so I didn't know what those were. So I didn't make any big plays. But I'll tell you what, it's true in these games, and it's going to be an ebb and flow piece. You're not going to have your way all the time because you're facing someone playing a play out that's up to the challenge. And so it should be a fun one. It may come down to the last possession. Montana State's a team that will not beat themselves. That's what I do know. And so those are the scariest teams, no matter if you're home or away.
Aaron Best joining us here on Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio. It's Across the Sideline, presented by Mike Nugent, Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate. In the market to buy or sell, no matter what. It's a complicated real estate market. Give Mike Nugent and his associates a call at Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, your local real estate experts. Coach, let's talk about the other side of the ball quickly. What have you thought of your defense so far? And I was so impressed when I watched it a month ago against Montana. I thought, in particular, Jack Settlebach and Kalen Kreiner play with their hair absolutely on fire. They ran to the ball so well, and it was impressive to watch. But what have you thought of your defense so far, and how does that match up with the Montana State team that here we are once again leading the league in rushing?
Well, again, it's going to be a huge test. I mean, I think for a better part of 5 weeks in a row now, we faced a run-first outfit on defense, from the opposing offense. So here you go with a more mobile quarterback than the Weber State, situation we had 2 weeks ago. Obviously, McKay's done a good job keeping the ball possessed by their offense and not making bad or weird decisions. He does pull the ball. He does stretch defense, so you got to count for the quarterback. And obviously they lead the league in rushing for a reason. They're committed to the run. They're gonna have multiple sets out of the situations, in run situations. Afonso is a guy that's towed the ball a lot. He's a guy you can give the ball 20, 25 times to, and he only gets better with carries. Elijah Elliott's a backup. They'll splash him in. The quarterback obviously can go for 100 at any point if given the opportunity. And so we've got to play gap sound. We've got to tackle people. We've got to recognize certain specific situations if the opportunity presents itself. And so we've got to make big plays. We've got to keep behind the sticks. We've got to make them uncomfortable by throwing the ball, which is what they don't want to do a ton of. But we've got to establish, the front seven. We've got to establish a run stout stopping defense to be able to put them in those second and longs and third mediums to longs. And so it's going to be a huge challenge. And so any run first outfit naturally sets up the play action pass or the RPO once you start getting safeties and backers close to the line of scrimmage. So the better we stop the run, the better chance we have to kind of sit back and let things play out in front of us.
Eastern Washington hosts number 4 Montana State Saturday at the Inferno, Cheney, Washington. Look forward to being there. Coach, last thing for you. If Eastern Washington is to come out with a win in this one, what do you think the keys to victory will be for the Eagles?
Well, we got to be on the plus side of the turnover margin. We've got to, I'd like to see game-changing play in special teams. Whether that's cost turnover on one of our covered units or a big return in the punt return or kick return department. And then I'd like to see us establish some balance and consistency on offense as far as the tempo that we play at. And 3 and outs are going to happen, but when you string 3 or 4 or 5 together, that becomes an issue. And if we can do that, we can play complementary football, forcing them on defense to throw the ball in situations where they don't want to. Those play out victorious for us. And so we've got to play sound football. The number one key is the plus side of the turnover margin. They expect to get it. We expect not to give it up. So it's going to be a tussle back and forth for 60 minutes.
Across the sideline, Aaron Best, Eastern Washington head coach. Thanks so much for spending so much time with us today, Coach. We appreciate it and look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Best of luck.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
So there you go, Aaron Best, Eastern Washington head coach. Here on Nuanez Now, Across the Sideline, presented in part by Nick Tabor and Westpac Wealth. One of the most complicated things in business is business succession plan. So, you started a business, you built it up for 30, 40 years. You've done great. It's time to retire. You want to lay on the beach with your wife, reading a book. Great. But what happens to your business? You got to realize you got to pass this thing along some form or fashion. Nick Tabor, the guys at Westpac Wealth, they can help you with business succession plans. They're experts in it. Let Nick Tabor and Westpac Wealth make your life more tax efficient today. We're a couple minutes early here for the first time ever. We're going to keep on talking Big Sky Conference sports, keep on talking this Eastern Washington Montana State game, as well as Montana's game at Northern Colorado. But I want to bring in Andrew Houghton, our producer, right now, because this is something that, I know that we sort of organically reveal things about ourselves as this show moves along. But I haven't even had a chance to ask Andrew this, even on a personal level, let alone on a professional level. But he sent me a text during the show yesterday. Our Monday afternoon contributor, a Monday afternoon quarterback with Coach Marty Morningweg, comes in from 5 to 6 with us here on Mondays to talk all things football, mostly the NFL. And Coach Morningweg, he spent 26 seasons in the NFL, offensive coordinator and quarterbacks guru, coached guys like Brett Favre and Steve Young and Jeff Garcia, Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, a bunch of sweet players. Well, Andrew is from back east, but unlike most people from the nation's capital, he roots for the Philadelphia Eagles, not the Washington football team. Coach Marty was with the Eagles, I believe, for 11, maybe even 12 seasons. It's the longest tenure he's been with a team. He's been to Philly multiple times. He was there with Andy Reid for a long time, and then also was there under Doug Peterson most recently as an analyst here the last couple of years before he then came to Missoula to, I'm not going to say he's retired quite yet, but he's taking a little time off from the coaching business, and gosh, we're happy to have him. But Andrew, yesterday Marty was telling some stories about old school Eagles guys. This actually has to be super cool for you to hear about, like from a first-hand perspective, about guys that you probably liked when you were a kid.
Right. He was talking about like Brian Westbrook not being able to practice for a couple weeks, and you'd be able to bring him back in and he'd be fine. And like Brian Westbrook is one of my favorite football players of all time.
No question.
Because he was on those Donovan McNabb teams, and they had the two-headed monster of Westbrook and Deuce Staley, and he was sort of like, he was one of those first guys who really, introduced the archetype of the out-of-the-backfield receiving running back. He's just a really cool player, a lot of fun to watch because he would run routes out of the backfield, make guys miss. So I love hearing stories about guys. He was talking about Jeremy Maclin later in the show. Like, I still have a Jeremy Maclin jersey, like, in my closet right now. Like, I love those guys. Those were those early 2000s Eagles, and going into, like, the Vic, Jeremy Maclin, Deshaun Jackson years were, like, the first sports teams that I ever really fell in love with.
What was the hook?
They were always so... Obviously, the Washington football team was on TV, but the Philadelphia Eagles were always on television.
Right. So for people that don't have geographical perspective, Philadelphia is how far from Washington, D.C.?
Like 4 hours?
Yeah, not very far.
Right.
Yeah. A couple hundred miles.
And it was always, I mean, first of all, because they would play Washington twice a year, you would get the whole build-up around that game, whatever. They would get written about a lot in the D.C. papers. But also just the national game on Fox every week, that 4 p.m. game on Fox, especially in the D.C. area, was going to be an NFC East game.
Right.
So if Washington wasn't playing, it was going to be Eagles-Giants or Eagles-Cowboys or something. So I watched them a lot, and I think just they were really good back then. I mean, when I started to watch, it was really when those Donovan McNabb teams were coming into their own. Made it to 4 straight NFC championship games, made it to 1 Super Bowl in that time. So they were good. I think the uniforms just clicked for me, like that midnight green, super shiny.
Yeah.
Just, I was 6 or 7 years old or whatever, so that clicked for me. I think it was a combination of all those things. It's, yeah, man, the Eagles were the first team that I really rooted for.
Question I've been wondering forever. Is Dawn Staley Deuce Staley's sister?
I don't think so.
Okay, I always wondered that. I don't know. I have no idea.
I have no idea.
But when you think about it, they could be brother and sister, right?
Okay, hang on.
And I mean, I've wondered this forever, and I always thought that if they are siblings, that was not a storyline that was played up enough, because Dawn Staley is one of the great women's basketball players ever, now a great coach, and Deuce was definitely a Pro Bowl level player during his prime. The prime didn't last too long, but certainly an interesting one. One other question for you on the Eagles.
I don't think they are. I just put it in a little Google search and nothing is coming up. So
I guess they didn't miss the storyline because it isn't one. That's why I was wondering that. Number 2, is Donovan McNabb a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
I think so, too. I don't know if that's going to be the slam dunk, though. I think he's going to have to wait a little while.
Because he never won the Super Bowl.
Because he never won a Super Bowl. He was also never the most prolific or best quarterback in his generation. He was certainly among, but he was never for 1 second better than Peyton Manning or Tom Brady.
No.
And, I don't know. I think that he's going to be kind of stuck there.
No, I'm the wrong person to ask about this, obviously, because of the bias that we just talked about.
Sure.
But I think if you think back to those mid-2000s, I mean, this has nothing to do with the Hall of Fame, and of course it's amplified for me because I was an Eagles fan. Donovan McNabb was one of the biggest stars in the NFL for 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
With those Eagles teams.
Yes, for sure.
And that doesn't count for the Hall of Fame for anything. But you look at his stats, I mean, those Eagles teams put up really big numbers with him.
Yeah.
He was one of the first of that sort of new generation of running quarterbacks, along with Mike Vick when he came out.
Yeah.
Of course, there had been running quarterbacks before, but I remember that being a storyline around Donovan McNabb early in his Eagles career. I think the whole package is enough to put him in the Hall of Fame for sure, although it becomes a lot easier when you do have a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it does for sure. I also think that there's some cultural impacts that he made as well. He certainly wasn't the first African-American quarterback, nor the first all-pro African-American quarterback, but he seemed like the first one that gained sort of all-encompassing stardom, right? I mean,
no doubt. And when I said running quarterbacks, I there's the part of the being African-American that plays into that with that generation of Donovan McNabb, Dante Culpepper,
sure,
Michael Vick, where before it had literally just been Randall Cunningham, who was black and allowed to play that way, right?
Totally. I mean, yeah, and this is not to overshadow guys like Warren Moon or Doug Williams or any of the great quarterbacks that came before Donovan McNabb, but I think that he was the most consistent one and the most prolific one, too. I mean, I think Donovan McNabb somehow, we're arguing if he's a Hall of Famer or not, yet I still somehow think he's underrated, which is amazing to say. But Donovan McNabb was sick, man. The fact that he lived up to expectations, too, I mean, you actually have as good a chance, if not a better chance, to not be a great quarterback when you're drafted in the top 3. And the fact that he was number 2 out of a really non-football school and then did have at the very least, borderline Hall of Fame career, it's impressive, man. I love Donovan McNabb.
In the situation that he came into, I mean, when he was drafted, Eagles fans were booing the commissioner, booing the draft pick in Radio City Music Hall or wherever they had the draft, because that was not the guy that they wanted.
No question. Nuanez now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. More football, this time Big Sky Conference football. Keep it right here, ESPN Radio.
Introducing Sportsbet Montana, powered by the Montana Lottery. Join in the excitement of Sportsbet Montana by betting on your favorite sports and teams, both collegiate and professional, including NFL, NBA, MLB, MMA, NASCAR, and more. There are multiple ways to bet, including in-game, which gets you in on the action live as the game unfolds, and parlay betting, where you have the chance to win big. Sportsbet Montana is secure and interactive. Learn more at sportsbetmontana.com.
Paul Ryan is a name that's been synonymous with law around the Garden City for decades. And Paul is excited to announce the expansion of his firm to Ryan, Holloway, and Miller. Paul Ryan, Nate Holloway, and Angie Miller have a fierce love for their community, and they want to help you with any of your legal needs. From auto accidents to medical malpractice to wrongful death or any criminal defense, Ryan, Holloway, and Miller should be your first call. When it comes to personal injury or criminal defense, call Ryan, Holloway, and Miller today. Ryan, Holloway, and Miller, your Montana attorneys.
You know what you need. You're a contractor, a landscaper, a weekend explorer, and you know better than anyone that having the right tool for the job makes life that much easier. With over 1,500 vehicles to choose from, Northwest Motorsport has the right rig for you. Check out NWMSRocks.com and find hundreds of cars, trucks, and SUVs to fit your work, your life, and your style. That's Northwest Motorsport. Trucks, and more trucks.
Open your new Stockman Bank account anytime, anywhere with online account opening. Now, you can open an account in minutes on your laptop, tablet, or mobile phone. It's convenient, simple, and secure. Open your new account today at stockmanbank.com. Then add our online and mobile banking services so you can manage your money when, where, and how you want. Stockman Bank, Montana's brand of banking. Member FDIC.
The world of real estate is always evolving. That's more true now than ever. If you are a longtime Missoulian that is looking to upgrade or downsize, it might be the best time yet to sell. If you're in the position to buy something new, today might be the best time to buy. And no matter what questions you have when it comes to residential or commercial real estate, Mike Nugent and the professionals at Berkshire Hathaway in Missoula have your answers. To find out what Mike can do for you, give him a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
You've been dreaming about a sandwich from Tagliari Deli all day. Why continue to torture yourself by waiting even longer? If you order online or call ahead, Tagliari Delicatessen will have the best sandwich in the Treasure State ready for you upon arrival. To place an order, visit TagliariDelicatessen.com or give Tagliari a call at 406-830-3049. Tagliari has been named Montana's best deli by the Food Network and best sandwich by People magazine. Why wait? Order Tagliari Deli ahead of time today.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
The Grizz pulled out the spookiest of wins. The Bobcats have a showdown with conference title implications upcoming, and high school postseasons hit a fever pitch over the weekend. Hello, I am Colter Nuanez. Montana was flagged a total of 19 times and officially penalized 12, while also turning the ball over 4 times and seeing senior quarterback Cam Humphrey get knocked out of the game yet again. Yet the Grizz still figured out a way to pull out a bizarre 20-19 win over Southern Utah Saturday in Missoula. The Grizz moved to 3-2 in Big Sky play, 6-2 overall, while dropping Southern Utah to 1-8. Montana State and Eastern Washington, ranked number 4 and number 5 in this week's poll respectively, each had byes last week. This week, the 2 top teams in the Big Sky square off in Cheney, Washington. EWU is looking to bounce back from its first conference loss 2 weeks ago, a 35-34 home loss to Weber State. Montana State has won 7 straight and sits atop the conference standings at 5-0 in Big Sky Conference play. And finally, the high school football playoffs are into the quarterfinals for all classifications, and the Sentinel Spartans know their opponent to begin their postseason title defense. The reigning Class AA champions will take on Great Falls High after the Bison eliminated Missoula Big Sky 41-14. Other AA quarterfinal matchups include Bozeman at Helena, Capital at West, and Butte at Glacier. This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Selway Armory. Did we ever find out who the Gorillas actually were? They're like this cartoon band that was like, I mean, as you can hear, sweet. Love them. Love grooving. Don't think we ever saw them. I don't think we even know who they are. I'm sure somebody knows now. I could probably figure it out. Google knows everything. Welcome back. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. I'm Colter Nuanez coming to you from the Northwest Motorsports Studio. Go hit up NWMSRocks.com. That's NWMSRocks.com to check out Northwest Motorsport. They have the largest inventory of trucks anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. Going to talk a little Big Sky football here in just a moment. But at the FBS level, the college football rankings are out. Georgia sits atop the latest college football rankings at number 1. Alabama's number 2. I feel like I could do the same read every year since the college football playoff was instituted. I joke, but not really. A couple new faces, sort of. One completely new face. Michigan State, number 3, after their big win over Michigan over the weekend. And the only Pac-12 team other than Washington to make it to the college football playoff, Oregon, is in as well, or is ranked 4th. So that's your top 4 right there. Georgia, Alabama, Michigan State, Oregon. Cincinnati is number 6. They have one of the highest rankings of any Group of 5 team. One spot ahead of the number 7 designation that they held during an undefeated season in 2020. Cincinnati is undefeated again at 8-0. They are ranked number 2 in both the AP and coaches polls. They had aimed to be the first ever Group of 5 team to appear in the College Football Playoff Selection Committee's top 4. Cincinnati, they have a win over number 10 Notre Dame, which is probably their best win, not probably, definitely their best win of the year. It ended Notre Dame's 26-game home winning streak in South Bend. So, I don't know. I rant and rave about this all the time. I just think that the method could be better. I think it's silly that there's 125 FBS teams and the vast majority of them start the season with no chance to win a national championship. I also think it's silly that some of the biggest spending programs in the country still have almost no chance to have a seat at the table. It just seems like there's going to be, because of the way that the structure is modeled and because of the way that some of these powerhouse programs have entrenched themselves as indomitable forces, it's going to be really hard to ever unseat Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State. I mean, the fact that Oregon is sort of on the outside looking in, even though they sort of have a seat at the table, it's just at the kids' table, that's pretty crazy in itself. That shows you the amount of money and the amount of power that exists in these things. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess I like watching when Alabama and Ohio State play. I like watching Alabama-Clemson. It's weird that Clemson's fallen off this year. I didn't know if that was going to happen anytime soon, but it has happened to at least one of the perennial college football playoff contenders. But I don't know, here nor there. Just a weird time. We bring now in Andrew Houghton, our producer, talk a little bit more Big Sky football. And first, we'll talk about what's been blowing up the social medias the last couple days. I guess since yesterday afternoon. We've heard rumblings for a while that College Game Day was maybe at least considering a trip to Missoula to host the best pregame show in all of college football sports television leading up to the Montana State at Montana football game on November 20th. So it would be that day, that Cat Grizz Saturday. And then yesterday, basically a big blast on social media, spearheaded by the Grizz football Twitter account, sort of lobbying and saying, hey, Grizz fans, show College Game Day, what you got. Tweet at the College Game Day accounts. And it seems like it's getting a little traction. I also don't really know how this works. I don't really know how much influence that has. I feel so weird about the whole procedure of it all because on one hand, from a human perspective, just from a guy who runs ESPN or who has a show on ESPN radio in Missoula, Montana, who's from Missoula, who went to the University of Montana, it would be epic marketing for College Game Day to come here. I also feel so weird about participating in a PR push by the university. And again, it's not that I don't want it to come here. I just want them to do all the PR. And so, I felt sort of obligated to retweet this thing, but I didn't want to say hell yeah, come to Missoula, even though it is hell yeah, come to Missoula. That would be awesome. It would be so sick if they were here, and it would be great for us. It'd be great for everybody. It'd be so cool. It'd be great exposure for my hometown, great exposure for my alma mater, all of it. But also, it's just, I felt weird doing that. So instead, I just tweeted that it would be great if it was here, but also I just have some questions just about how all of this works, because it seems as if oftentimes they're just going to the best game in the country. And this is certainly one of the most storied rivalries in the country, but that same afternoon, Michigan State and Ohio State play. So it's hard to argue that it's the best game. I mean, Michigan State, like I just mentioned, is number 3 in the college football rankings. So again, my take here is that it's awesome that this is even a possibility. I also don't know how the procedure works in terms of participation when it comes to promoting it on social media. I don't know if a million Grizz fans tweet at College Game Day, does that really have an influence at College Game Day? I don't really know, and it's also just a weird thing.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do the College Game Day guys get tweeted at by people around the country, right? There are people down in coastal Carolina and everywhere tweeting at College Game Day, hey, you know where you should come this weekend?
Maybe it is different since they've only ever been to an FCS school once when they went to North Dakota State, right? Or did they go to James Madison once too, maybe? It's been absolutely less than 3 times. We know that, and it's certainly never been in Montana. So maybe it is a little different just because it's a whole new fan base. Maybe if they do see that, there's 100,000 individual Twitter accounts that are interested in this game or whatever, that has an influence. But you're right, App State and Georgia Southern and Coastal Carolina, let alone Georgia and Ole Miss and Florida and Oregon and Arizona State. I mean, everybody's, well, maybe not Arizona State, but I digress. Is tweeting, hey, come check out our spot, right?
Right. So I look at it this one of two ways, and it's like everything you said from the perspective of Montana State, our sports community, the FCS. Like it's just win because you get that exposure. We know it's going to be a great atmosphere, right? Yep. So you're going to look great, and it's just a cool thing, right? Like Corso and Herb Street and whoever else is on the panel now.
It's iconic. I mean, it's
absolutely. I mean, I think that
it's synonymous with college football.
I think that if they were going to come to an FCS game, they should have done this one first.
Sure.
But that's just my bias talking. Looking at it from the other way, from ESPN's perspective, if they're thinking about doing this, I'm kind of in two minds about it. I mean, for all the reasons we talked about, I mean, they are going to get the benefit of that great atmosphere. Mm-hmm. They're going to introduce their viewer base to a large portion of their viewer base, I should say, to something that they've never seen before. And that novelty should help, and they'll be able to do a bunch of cool stuff with it and have a bunch of cool content coming out of it. But like you said, I mean, man, there are a lot of other good games in the country that weekend. And I just look at it in the context of, I mean, we all saw the ratings for the Montana Eastern Washington game earlier this season, which there were a lot of conflicting things around that because it was so late at night. But those ratings weren't good on ESPN2.
Well, that's the other thing that's worth noting, though, is that this does not have to be, and in fact will not be associated with the broadcast. The game, they don't pick a game that they think is going to have high ratings. They pick a atmosphere that they think is going to be cool to show as they go around the country, right? Yeah. They'll be, college game day, how long does it even last? It's been forever since I even watched it because I'm always setting up our college game day pregame show. I think it's a couple hours, 3 hours, whatever. And it gets you set for all the games across the country. It's one of the great shows, sports show. I want to call it a studio show, but it's not a studio because it's outside. But it's one of the great sports commentary shows.
Definitely pregame shows. Yeah, it's probably is the greatest.
It's the greatest, and it's what we try to replicate with our ESPN College Game Day. Absolutely, except for we're always usually focusing on one game in one league, but they're going to take you all around the country. They'll probably only talk about the actual Montana State game. It's like being a part of every rejoin, getting some liners. And then, a couple tidbits here and there, and then maybe talk about the game in totality for, 10, 15 minutes over the span of that 3 hours. But I've heard a lot of feedback with people saying, well, why would College Game Day come here when the Grizz can't even score a touchdown in the first half and stuff like that? It's like, well, the fact of the matter is that the talk of the actual game is going to be irrelevant. They're going to talk all about the history of the game. Awesome. And they're not going to show the game. In fact, they can't. I mean, they could certainly buy the rights from Root Sports if it really came down to that. That ain't happening. You're not going to watch the Brawl of the Wild on ESPN1 right after College Game Day. It's not happening. Most of the time, even, there's often times when they're at, say, Ohio State, Michigan. That game's not on ESPN. It might be on their sister network of ABC. Sometimes, though, they've been in South Bend certainly before, and Notre Dame has never been on ESPN. So it's not necessarily associated with the game either. But, it would be cool. I just think it's I don't know. I just feel so weird about the way that they're promoting it. But that's not to say if you're a non-journalist, if you're a Grizz person or a Bobcat person or a Montana or whatever, tweet the hell out of this. Let's go. That's fine. That's all good. You can say everything you ever wanted about how sweet the atmosphere is and all that. It's just I just feel weird about it.
Yeah. Here's the good thing. We don't have to participate in that PR blitz. I agree with you that it is a little bit weird, but it's great to see people excited about it.
That's true. It certainly is true. There'd be even more excitement if the Grizz were just playing a little bit better on offense, but I digress to what we have been talking about for pretty much a month straight. So on that note, we're going to take one more break, pay some more bills, and we'll be back at it. We'll talk to you a little bit more about both Montana State's matchup this weekend at Eastern Washington as well as Montana's matchup at Northern Colorado. Keep it right here, 102.9 FM ESPN Radio. Why build a work history at a job when you can build a future in your own business? Westpac Wealth Partners is looking for entrepreneurial-minded people who are ready to take their future into their own hands. Nick Tabor and his associates provide clients with financial tools and tested solutions for navigating this complex financial climate. Westpac Wealth also has a work culture that has been recognized as a best workplace in Fortune magazine. If you're ready to start building a business in a long-term career, apply at westpacwealth.com. Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Insurance products offered through Westpac Wealth Partners and Insurance Services, LLC, a DBA of Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC.
Bob Ward's annual Ski by Diva Do sale is on now. Skiers and boarders, this is the preseason sale you don't want to miss. Clothing, gear, and accessories on sale right now during the Ski by Diva Do sale at Bob Ward's. Gear up the entire family for less during Ski by Diva Do. Plus, their layaway programs make getting the gear you want easy. See store for details. Hurry in for big savings on jackets, boots, bindings, skis, boards, and more during the Ski by Diva Do sale at Bob Ward's, your snow sport headquarters.
Like most Montanans, we love a good steak. And because we're the Montana Club, we take the steaks we serve very seriously. We're confident to say that our custom-grilled steaks are as good a steak as you're going to get. Now we're proud to add regularly sourced, naturally raised Castle Rock bison ribeye to our selection. And remember, the Montana Club steak entrees include the sides. Come into the Montana Club today for an unrivaled steak experience. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Here at Florence Coffee, we take pumpkin serious, offering a variety of pumpkin lattes, chais, and frappes. They're all made with our real pumpkin to give your drink that genuine and satisfying fall pumpkin taste. Also try our all-natural pumpkin spice flavoring made from real spices and extracts. If you're ready for something pumpkin, you're ready for Florence Coffee. Go to any location or florencecoffeeco.com.
Under the big sky, Florence Coffee Company.
Grizz hockey is back this weekend with two big conference home games against Eastern Washington University this Friday and Saturday night. The hard-hitting and high-flying Grizz hockey team is looking forward to showing Eastern Washington that Missoula has the best fans in college hockey. Tickets available at the gate, but you can avoid the long lines and get your tickets early at Hockey Wolf on Brook Street. Alcoholic beverages sold at the game, and there's a free shuttle from campus for students. Come see what all the buzz has been about and watch the most exciting show in town. Grizz hockey this Friday and Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. both nights at the Glacier Ice Rink.
For 4 years running, Coulter Nuanez and the team at ESPN Missoula have captured the E.B. Craney Award for Radio Sports Coverage of the Year. Each Wednesday on Nuanez Now, the featured long-form interview of the week takes center stage. Tune in to Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula or SWX Montana Television to hear the Montana Radio Sportscaster of the Year conduct an in-depth interview with prominent sports figures from around Montana. The ESPN Roundtable during the 5 o'clock hour each Wednesday on Nuanez Now is proudly presented by Paradise Falls.
1, 2, 3. Nuanez Now on ESPN Radio.
So if you're watching on TV and you see me looking up behind me, I'm sitting on this side because our good buddy and our producer of the show, Andrew Houghton's been involved in pretty much all the show today, which, by the way, it is Nuanez Now on ESPN Radio. But we have our, what we call Next Gen, which is the logs for the radio up here. And if you see me looking up there, that's where the clock's at. That's how we know where to get in and out for all the spots and all that stuff. But also, we have some new innovation here where we can play a variety of music, which is awesome, and it's one of my favorite parts of this show. But we still have some pre-made bumper music there as well. So I was just looking up to see if that was one of the old school Tommy tracks or if you had picked that song, because I was going to say, if you had picked that song, that's crazy, because the only person I know that knows that song is Tommy Evans, our illustrious engineer.
No, that was already laid in there, so that's a Tommy track.
Love You in the Fall by Paul Westberg. Good song. Takes me back to the good old days. These are the good old days. What am I talking about? Missed anything in today's show? Fun show. We went all the way around the world of soccer to get things started off, so that was certainly fun. We also did some high school football playoff scores, our Treasure State Stars for the week, highlighting some of the best individual performances of the week. We heard from Aaron Best, Eastern Washington head football coach, as his team prepares for Montana State, and also talked a little college game day, the prospects of the greatest pregame show in college sports coming to the Garden City. You can find everything on the podcast on all your podcast hosting platforms. Nuanez Now. Please rate, review, subscribe. 5 stars, certainly preferred. Proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications, the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel, and Sportsbet Montana. Not much time to talk anymore about Grizz or Bobcat football, but we have plenty of time the rest of this week, so we will certainly do that more. Fun having Andrew on board, fun having him contribute to this show. Definitely good to talk to the man on the other side of the glass because, quite frankly, talking to yourself is very difficult. That's why I think that there's certain guys out there in this business that, you know, if you got a host or multiple co-hosts, it's awesome to form chemistry with somebody or multiple people. I mean, I'm trying to do that here with a variety of guests. I hope everybody's enjoying it. But the guys that can do it straight up solo dolo, man, you might think that they ramble a little bit, but how can you not when you're just talking to yourself? It's pretty crazy to not have any bumpers and to fill air for 2 and 3 hours solo like some of these guys do. So mad props to anybody out there that does their show all the way solo. I know this is like I'm the primary host of this show, but if you haven't noticed, I need somebody to talk to. That's kind of my specialty is the conversational element of this thing. I can't really let it rip all the way by myself. So appreciate everybody for being around and being here. But it's a fun show today. You can find all that on the podcast. Tomorrow, I'm swinging by SWX Montana TV tonight. So our standard routine as it's becoming with myself and Sean Rainey from SWX Montana. Also, a couple other fun guests tomorrow. We're going to hear from Brent Vegan, Montana State head football coach. We're also going to hear from Larry Weir, the voice of the Eastern Washington Eagles. Larry's been calling Eastern for a long time. We're really a lot of coverage on this Eastern Montana State game because it is the biggest game in the country and it has mad, big-time Big Sky Conference Championship. I almost said fantasy football. Big Sky Conference Championship repercussions. Speaking of, that's a Freudian slip for you right there. We also will have some fantasy football advice for you tomorrow as well as part of a Wing It Wednesday, and we'll have a dozen wings from the Desperado Sports Tavern and Grill. Have yourself an awesome Tuesday night. Game 6 of the World Series is tonight, so we'll break that down a little bit tomorrow as well. Atlanta Braves knocking on the door of a championship, but Houston held them off last time, so that'll be going live here in just a few minutes right after this show is over. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Nuanez Now.